Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What You Say Anime. I'm your host, Peter. As we venture into the new year, let's take a step back and reflect on the recently wrapped up fall season with our final review of 2023. We will be talking spoilers on a handful of shows, so if you are not finished yet and want to jump around, please use the timestamps listed in the description episode below. Now, if you haven't seen our Boy in the Heron review, you may not know who this person is. Joining me today on this review is Cozette like coconut. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I'm really excited to be here, talk about some seasonals, and thank you for pronouncing my name. That's great.
I had a lot of nervous coming into this, so hopefully I can get it right. So I actually wrote, before you joined, I actually did write down Cozette as coconut, and that way we can going forward not screw up people's names, because I am awful at remembering people's names and saying people's names. So thank you for that little tidbit. It helped me a lot. But we are here to talk anime. Some of us here are battling hangovers, so if I am out of it just a little bit, that's why. We are recording this on New Year's Day. So I'm gonna do my best to try to remember everything, and hopefully Cozette can help me if my mind is a little out of whack. So let's jump into our first show, the recently wrapped up powerhouse shonen. That is Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. Now, we've had 23 episodes spanning over 6 months, trying to remember everything that happened in this. So we had the hidden inventory arc that moved into Shibuya. I think Shibuya is mostly fresh in our minds, but I did want to talk a little bit about hidden inventory. I think for the first, it's like 7 or 8 episodes to really set the tone of what Shibuya was going to be, with Gojo and Geto's backstory, sort of their bromance slash BL that people don't claim is BL, but like another show on our list that we'll be talking about later. Yeah, it's a little more than just a little teaser, I think, for that. But I thought that really set the show on like what this next season was going to be, because hidden inventory started out as sort of this setup, but then it kind of spiraled more with chaos and fighting and bloodshed, with the girl that they were protecting getting got, the boom headshot that was out of absolutely nowhere. And then also they introduced to Daddy Toji and his introduction with like who he was and like who his son is. That kind of set up more, I think, also for Shibuya, but also I think going forward. So there's a lot with hidden inventory. What were your thoughts on hidden inventory before we get into Shibuya?
I really loved it, but I think the thing that I love about Jujutsu Kaisen is not about the action, but more about the connections and the people. So I think it was a good setup for Shibuya, because like that's how Geto got Gojo's, because he shocked him. He's like, because Gojo thought he was alive, but dead this whole time. So I personally really loved Hidden Inventory. When I read it, I was so excited to see it animated, because I really love Gojo, and it was nice to see their dynamic with Shoko, Geto, and Gojo all together, because that was very reflective of like Nobara, Megumi, and Yuji. So I really loved the arc. I think the premiere was in that like not the haunted house, but the house.
Yep.
Yeah, so I remember that chapter was very quick, but Mappa really stepped it up for this season, because it wasn't that long in the manga. So I really love the fact that Mappa enhanced the source material. So yeah, and it was the best OP of the season for JJK.
Okay.
I liked it way more than specials, and I think it's because there was more significance in the OP. Like the lyrics really tie into the storyline of Geto and Gojo. So yeah. I personally liked that one more than specials. So
I also did like the hidden inventory. I also think specials is a little overrated, which is really hard for me to say, because I love was it King Nu? They did the Ranking of Kings OP. That was like one of my favorites, like from that year, and so I was expecting a little bit more from them. But yeah, I thought hidden inventory was a fantastic like setup to what we are, I think, mostly going to talk about, since it was the bulk of this season, was the Shibuya incident, the Shibuya arc, where this is everything that I love about shonen. I think with your connections, I think I got that more from the first part than I did with the second part. I think the second part was pure adrenaline, fights, what's going to happen next. We saw what one thing that I really dislike about shonen is the lack of threats. And then I think what this season did was really establish threats in Jujutsu Kaisen, where we see somebody like Nanami, who was beloved by people, get taken out in such a way that I didn't really catch me. I mean, that really caught me off guard, where I'm so used to these characters getting plot armor, or if they die, they come back to life somehow, that type of thing, where the Nanami death really stood out to me. I'm like, oh, okay, like this is for real. Like this, they're not playing around in Shibuya right now. So that's like one of the big pivotal moments for me that stood out for me in Shibuya. Were there's any moments for you that was like defining on like what this arc really was for you?
Yeah, honestly, even though Mechamaru's part was so small in the anime, that really hit me because I was so excited to see him outside of his armor. And I was like, oh, that's cool. We get to see him. And then all of a sudden he's dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I totally agree. Because with most shonen battle action, most of these people stay alive for a long time. And like, we don't see people dying for a couple of seasons. So I think like Nanami's death was definitely the one that like hit it. Where you're like, because he's such a significant part of Jujutsu Kaisen. So his death was definitely the most significant. And it shocked me. I think I remember when I read the chapter, I was like, wait. Because it goes really quickly, just like how it did in the anime. Because I personally thought that maybe the episode end where he was going to die and we would get a moment of silence, we can grieve. No, it went straight back to the action. So it definitely hit me. But I think Shibuya is definitely, I think a lot of people got spoiled. So a lot of people knew that there was something coming for Shibuya, but the death toll definitely hit pretty hard.
Yes.
Death toll and like injury toll, I guess. So.
Yes. Yeah. Injury toll as well, because I think there are some question marks, especially as a manga reader, that some things that happen in Shibuya, I think, are not necessarily set in stone for what we think it is. So I'm looking forward, as me, I'm an anime only, really looking forward to seeing, like you said, the damage, the injury toll, the death toll, is like if it's confirmed or not. One thing that you mentioned, though, that I like liked and disliked at the same time, I did enjoy the Mechamaru thing, but the Miwa stuff, I didn't really have any reason. I feel like it felt so out of place, where what's happening in Shibuya and then kind of tying it into the class 2, was it the Kyoto class or the Osaka class? Tying them into this kind of, to me, felt out of place because they weren't really involved outside of Mechamaru. And so I'm like, why are they trying to get them involved when they're kind of, to me, seemingly out of place? Did you have any thoughts on that? Because I know that this was a little controversial, that people had issues with it. So I'm glad I'm not the only one, but I can also see why people did like it. So I want to get your thoughts.
For me, I think it was just, I saw it as Mechamaru protecting them because he knows how dangerous Mahito was. I forgot his name. Forgot already. But he knew how dangerous he was and he wanted to protect his friend. And so like that's why they were all like, why didn't you tell us? Why do you like exclude us from all this? So I can see like why he did what he did. I love that group of people, and it's nice to see them at the end of the episode in the finale. But the Miwa stuff, I know some people didn't like the Mechamaru and Miwa thing. I know there's some people who didn't connect with that and they didn't cry. I personally cried because I thought, oh, we finally have like some sort of love story.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit, and it was gone. So yeah,
right on. Okay, one thing I also want to shout out with the Mechamaru thing that they did some references that this season they did a lot of references to a lot of popular things. So the Mechamaru fight had like Neon Genesis fights involved with it, like the choreography. I thought that was great. The Chozo versus Itadori fight had choreography from The Raid, I think it's a Philippine action movie that I was like, those things are like really cool to see. Yeah. I think for the most part, I am very overwhelmingly positive about this, but there's one thing in particular that stuck out to me that I thought was a huge negative and kind of pulled me out of it just a little bit, was the Nobara death. I'm gonna put in quotation marks, where the backstory we got kind of, to me, felt a little forced, where we're supposed to start feeling maybe not necessarily bad for Nobara, but like all of a sudden now we're getting this backstory right before she gets killed. And to me, that also felt out of place, because I would have liked this established prior to this happening. And it's just like, okay, you literally set this up so I felt bad when Nobara gets her face exploded or something like that. And I was just like, when I see it on Twitter, when people are saying like Gigi doesn't know how to write female characters, I don't think it's not that he doesn't know how to write female characters. It just felt so poorly like placed in the storyboard where I'm like, this is good. It's just in the wrong spot. They should have been in like episode, whatever, maybe beginning of Shibuya. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, because like with Megumi, we got his backstory episodes ago, right?
Mhm.
Even in the movie, I think. I forget how the movie went. But with Nobara, like she's my favorite character. And so there is a reason why I dropped the manga. So I agree though. Like I wish there was more Nobara, and like this was like the only episode where we mostly got her. So it was my favorite episode of the season, but for Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really hurt. Like I think that there's a reason why I dropped Jujutsu Kaisen reading it though, just because of many reasons. But
Okay.
yeah, anyway, Nobara as well.
We can get into that maybe in season 3, and then we can get some more discovered since I'm anime only. But for the most part, that's really only the negatives I have for this. The overwhelmingly positive stuff, I thought that this was just so filled with like the action that I really enjoy. When we are setting up something like anime of the year and I'm like picking out a best fight, when a show has like 4 fights that I have to pick one from, I think that's like a really good sign of if you're looking for action, this is it. My personal favorite one was the Jogo versus Sukuna fight. I just thought how that was displayed. And so Jogo kind of defying Sukuna, even though I think in the back of my mind, I felt like he always knew that he was not going to win, but just sort of like standing up for what he believed in. And then just the animation was just wild, absolutely wild. But there were so many other ones that you could choose from. Mahito versus Itadori and Todo was just wild. Itadori versus Chuzu, which is the choreography was just next level. You could go back to hidden inventory and you could do Gojo versus Toji. Like there's so many different fights for different reasons in this season that just like stood out to me. I'm like, yes, I know how many times I said in Discord, I'm like, that episode was insane. Like what I just witnessed was insane. And like, that's what I love. Did you have like a specific fight or anything like that? I know I'm rambling, but did you have something specific with the fights that like really stood out to you?
Yeah. So the thing about Jujutsu Kaisen is that even though I did stop reading the manga, it's mostly because I preferred it animated. It just fights are easier to watch it animated.
Yep.
So the fights are absolutely incredible. I think Mappa really knocked it out of the park because they really enhanced the source material. I think one of the fights that I was most excited to see was the Choso and Yuji one, because Choso's blood art thing was like really hard to read on paper. Mm-hmm. So it was cool to just see that animated, and that was absolutely awesome. And I did love the Nobara fight with Yuji and Mahito, of course. But yeah, this season was like best fights probably for the season was in Jujutsu Kaisen. So yeah.
Also, one thing that stood out to me where we had been introduced to Mahito in the first season, but I don't think he really got explored. This season, he was my favorite character. As just a pure evil villain, I thought it was incredible, especially when he killed Nanami, and he's just like Itadori. I'm combining his name. Itadori's just like, he just saw his sensei get murdered, and Mahito's just like, will you shut up? You're so loud. It's just like any normal human being would be like, I just killed your sensei or whatever. He's just like, stop yelling. I don't know. Something about that was just so evil.
Yeah.
And just crazy. And then he's like this, we see later on in the season that he's like, I feel like he's like what's it called? Like an abomination of like different things combined into one entity. And he's just pure evil. And I loved him. Oh, he was so good. Did you have like a favorite character or somebody that stood out this season compared to maybe season 1? Or did your favorite character carry over from season 1?
Besides Nobara, because that's just the bias, but I think Yuji really stepped up this season. Mm-hmm. I think his voice actor, like I would give him voice actor of the year, because like that scene where he's like after he transforms back from Sukuna, he's like in darkness and he's like screaming into the ground. Like it was at the end of an episode. Mm-hmm. That was incredible. So I think like Yuji really stepped it up this season, and You can feel his heartbreak, and I think even just like the last few seconds, was it the last few minutes of the finale where he's just like alone on the bridge and he's about to fight some monsters? Like, yeah, he was definitely my favorite for the season. And then Mahito, I think, was more frightening than Kenjaku for me. Like, he was actually, maybe because he killed Nanami, but he was more terrifying.
Who's Kenjaku? Wink.
Wait, was not revealed?
Oh, was it? I don't remember. If it did, I missed it. I always refer to him as Ghetto in quotation marks.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember. I could just be completely missing someone in the comments could be like, yo, Pete, like, you completely missed it. Like, I know who Kenjaku is.
Okay.
Did I really miss that? Okay. No, you might be right. I'm dumb. So like, I probably just missed it.
But I also read the manga, and I always have to like be careful. But I also I read this like 2 years ago, so a lot of the stuff I forgot.
Well, so it's not a spoiler. Like, we see the brain open up in this season. It's like, it's not Ghetto. Like, it's Ghetto, but not Ghetto. So okay, yeah.
What do you think about it was slightly revealed, and I think it went over some people's heads about the fact that Choso and Yuji might be related.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's because of who Choso's descendant, and then like you see a picture of this guy with like stitches on his head. There's some lore about it, but yeah, I just remember reading that in the manga. But
gotcha.
I don't know if that. Yeah.
And then last thing that I want to touch on is we get introduced again, if you watch JJK 0, to Yuta, who is one of my favorite characters in Jujutsu Kaisen. I really love JJK 0. And we're setting, I believe, Calling Games is next, right? That's the next arc.
Yes.
So we're setting up Calling Games. We see that Geto has been doing this plan of releasing the seals on these other people that are laid around, whether it's Tokyo or Japan in general, that we're about to have. Like, I don't know. I don't know anything about Calling Games other than it seems like it's like a battle royale of some sort. So we're setting up for more mayhem, I'm guessing, in the next arc, and Yuta is maybe in the forefront. So really looking forward to that. We are spending a lot of time on JJK, and I want to make sure this episode's not like 3 hours long. So I'm going to switch over to our ratings. JJK for me was everything that I wanted in like a shonen action property. I think the characters and cast are fantastic. The music was really good. I know that MAPPA really worked their employees to death, but I think they did a fantastic job. I think some of the outrage you see on Twitter, it's really easy to pinpoint like the one maybe mistake that they made and not get credit for the 99 other frames that they did incredible. So I thought that this was a fantastically animated show. One of the best from this year. I can't believe people think that this production was bad. That's crazy. This is just next level stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My complaints were very minor. Yeah, there were scenes and episodes that I maybe didn't like, but that doesn't take away from my enjoyment from 97% of the rest of the show. And I think that's what I really want to focus on, is just how good and how set up these two arcs were, setting up for more, and just kind of like the conclusions and threats that I really like to see in this style of showing. I'm giving this a 10. It's one of the best anime that I saw this year. And as you can tell, it's really easy to gush about, and we touched on 10% of what this episode or what this show did. So, Cozette, what are your thoughts?
I think for me, I had a bit of a step up because I did read it. And I do know that like MAPPA really, like, I think for most shows that MAPPA do, they enhance the source material and they add a lot more details and a lot more backstory. So I do, like, I'm someone that does not watch a lot of shonen action, like shonen battle action. Like Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the few that I do watch. So I'm swaying between a 9.5 and a 10. But like after this discussion, I feel like I would give it a 10 because I still really enjoyed it. And like for a shonen, that's a big thing for me. So yeah, I'll give it a 10.
Yep, I think we're in the same boat where there's just so much generic stuff out there that when you get something like JJK that really goes above and beyond what's out there and what's like generic, topical, or not topical, but just like typical of what we expect, and doing the things that I don't like in shonen and then actually making it what I like, I think it deserves all the credit that it gets. And there's a reason why it's one of the highest selling manga of all time, one of the highest selling manga in the last like 2 years. It's crazy, the Jujutsu Kaisen fandom, and I definitely get it. It's not like my favorite property in the world. I don't go out and like read it after the season's over, but seeing everything animated is just what I look for in anime. So I gotta give props where props is due. So 10 for me, 10 from Cozette. Moving on to our next show, another shonen battle action that people can't get enough of. That is Spy Family Season 2, coming off the backs of the part 2 of Season 1, where I think some people fell off of Spy Family a little bit, because I think, as somebody who has read it as well and watched it, how Season 1 of Spy Family gets set up, I think it's incredible. I think it loses a little bit of steam, but I'm just enjoying it so much where I love it, but I can see why people fell off. This season, however, I think got a lot of people back onto it with the cruise ship arc. People were complaining that Yor didn't get enough screen time. I think this is Yor's season. I think she absolutely killed it and really got to stand out more and show her assassin side than just the stay-at-home mom side. So this was a huge resurgence of Spy Family for a lot of people and myself. Because what are some of your initial thoughts on this season of Spy Family?
Yor's my favorite character in Spy Family. So I was so excited for this arc, because I also read it as well. So having it was 95% Yor. And I absolutely loved it, because there wasn't enough Yor in Season 1. I still love Season 1, of course, but I was so excited to just see Yor kick ass for a million episodes. And we did get to see a bit of her sweet side too, and to come to terms about how dangerous her job was, and kind of reconsider what would happen to me if I'm gone, and what's going to happen with Lloyd and Anya. So there was a lot of heart in this season as well. So I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. In her early ages of being an assassin, you see why she's doing this was to provide Yuri with a home since their parents were dead. And now we're at the point where Yuri's an adult. She's an adult. What is she fighting for? And she kind of, I feel like in this season, she lost that meaning of what she was actually fighting for. But then as we got in the cruise ship, she realized what's important to her, what she wants to do going forward, and sort of having this self-realization that, what I was doing it for before was different, but it's not always just about me. It's going to be about other people that I can't necessarily, it's not just blood family, but it's the family that I have now, but also the families for other people. Cause you saw her get connected to the person that she was protecting, and realizing, I'm doing this because of that family or the next family or the people who aren't involved in the politics and stuff like that. And I thought that was a really nice revelation from Yor to really be okay, I have these talents, I have these skills, and I'm doing good, was just such a nice thing to see, because a lot of times with Spy Family, the deep scenes are pretty quick and they're not really touched on. It's much more focused on the comedy and the action. I feel like this was Yor's maybe on, she's almost dying essentially, and it's going through her head. And it's okay, this is so much different than we saw before. Lloyd always wins every fight. Yor always wins every fight. Now it's Yor is bleeding and holding on to dear life, and shout to the director with his sniper rifle and stuff to help Yor out in this fight. That we really saw more from Yor that I wanted. I'm rambling, but I think that it shows how good Spy Family can be when we focus on the characters and not just the silly dynamics of these three in total. So I know we get that later on with Lloyd, which I would guess if we got a season 3, we're going to get a season 3, but we haven't really touched on Lloyd's backstory a lot. There's a reason why we saw he was a spy, but we will get that later on, which I'm really looking forward to, because it's honestly one of my favorite, even though it's a 0.1.2 chapter in the manga, it's one of my favorite entire parts of the manga. So I'm really hoping that gets explored. Yeah, I ramble a lot. Do you have anything? Do you want to say anything maybe outside of Yor?
I mean, Anya was adorable as usual, and it was nice to see Lloyd and Anya have some fun, and Lloyd was still doing Lloyd things. But it was a nice comedy relief, because this was actually a little dark. People were actually dying.
Yes.
So it was a little dark. So it was nice to have a bit of comedy from Anya and Lloyd. So question for you is that, did you feel that it was weird, the episode that the season ended on? Do you feel like it should have ended on the end of the cruise arc? Or do you think that episode with Lloyd and Bond was okay?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I do think the season should have ended on the last episode of the cruise ship arc. I think that would make the most sense. Spy Family does have this history of kind of like I feel like the episodes aren't necessarily like in order. I felt that in season 1 as well, where sometimes it just doesn't feel like this episode belongs in this slot. But to me, because of how Spy Family sort of is, where like these episodes, I want to say important, but like it serves a purpose, that these episodes have their reasons for being in the show in general. So it doesn't really like, take away from it too much, but I think I would prefer if the season did end on the cruise ship.
Yeah, I think I agree as well. But I think it was nice because we didn't see Bond like at all in the season. So it was nice to get an episode of it, but I think there would have been more impact if it did end it on the cruise arc. But I guess it was 2 episodes left from when it ended. So
yeah.
Off then.
Because after the cruise ship, we got like the Becky the Becky falling in love with Lloyd episode, which was super adorable, and then the Bond episode to close it out.
Yeah, but I think it still ended fine, because I think that's the nature of Spy Families, that they usually have like these arcs that last a few episodes, and then it goes into like random mini episodes, so it was fine to me, but I think it would have had more impact if it ended on the cruise arc.
I agree. I think it's also one of those things with how the TV rights work in Japan, where yes, I think this arc probably should have been 10 episodes, but they have to do 12. They have to fill the void. So it's I don't fault them, because like that's what, like, would you rather have 12 episodes or 0? So to me, it's like I would rather have 12 and sort of be a little bit out of place. I don't like it, doesn't like take away from my score, but I do think that you are absolutely correct that if we would have a bigger impact of the story if it ended with the accumulation of wrapping up the cruise ship, them having fun together, and sort of just like looking forward to what's next, and then bring that into either Code White or season 3.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get to our ratings for Spy Family. There's like an objective side of me, and then there's like a personal enjoyment side for me. So this season I thought was probably the second best outside of the beginning's first part. However, I love Spy Family. Like it's a comfort show for me. I watch it when I want to have fun, when I just want to like chill, turn my brain off type of show. This is one of the ones that I really look forward to watching and just having a good time. And I do rate based off my personal enjoyment of a show. So was there flaws in this season? Yes, we talked about it a little bit. I think people would be deterred from giving this like a 9 or a 10 because of how the episode structure was laid out. I get that. But to me, that doesn't really affect me. I had so much fun watching Spy Family. As a manga reader, like I know what's coming and I know what to expect. And just seeing it animated fills my heart up with joy. So objectively speaking, this is probably an 8. But because I love Spy Family so much and it gives me everything I want, I'm giving it a 10. I don't care. I love it. If you don't like having fun, I don't know what to tell you. This show's super fun. I love everybody in this show.
And no surprise here, I gave it a 10 as well. I gave it a 10. It was just absolutely perfect. This was the arc I was waiting for. And so like I knew I was going to love this more than the previous second half of the first season. So yeah, it's a 10.
Awesome. 2 10s. No bias here. Purely based on having a good time. So if you like having a good time, watch Spy Family. Moving on to our next show, a show that actually aired in the summer, but finished now. We got the final 3 episodes dropping on Christmas Day. We have Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead, kind of pulling back just like the hidden inventory arc, trying to remember what happened 3 months ago and wrapping my brain around it, trying to give like an honest review of this. I really enjoyed how Zom started. My issues with the show were in the middle. I really don't like how like his abusive manager and him coming back into the story, that middle episode. I really was not a big fan of those episodes. I felt like it was like an episode too long. Maybe I felt like the point was already there and they could have wrapped it up, and it dragged just a little bit. That's only like my real complaint about Zom 100 was that middle part. Outside of that, the cast is incredible. I had so much fun. Maybe his friend Kenshi got naked a little bit too much, and the comedy kind of got pulled away a little bit too much from that, because it's like when you do it once, it's funny. When you do it like 2 or 3 times, it's funny, but when you do it 10 times, it loses its luster. And I feel like, to me, if he's supposed to be a comedic effect type of character, it lost a little bit of that. However, Shizuka and Beatrix were such a great addition to like their team. I want to say I love their dynamic, where Shizuka is so analytical, so by the book, and Beatrice is this otaku living the samurai fantasy, but at the same time she also kind of is a samurai, so like that parallel is like really fun. I liked the last couple episodes where she's like riding on a horse and she's like this shogun warlord was fantastic. That's kind of like my initial thought. Because what are some of your initial thoughts on Zom 100, if you can remember from 6 months ago, what happened in episode 1?
I don't remember what I did yesterday.
Yeah, what did I eat for lunch today?
Honestly, I was a little apprehensive. Zom 100, 'cause I'm not a big I'm not a big zombie person, but like I think it was Last of Us aired earlier this year. So
in March, I think,
like
February, March.
Okay, cool. So this is like a nice, refreshing take after that, because that was depressing and dark, but this was like a nice breath of fresh air. I thought it was really charming and hilarious, and found family is one of my favorite tropes, and I do see that with Akira and the team. I wish we got more of them, but I think that's what's setting up for the next season. But I think I really love all their dynamic, and I like that they're all different people. I do agree the boss thing was a bit much midway through the season. I did see its intentions, because like it was trying to get Akira to get over that PTSD.
Sure.
So I but I do agree it was probably an episode too long. So it was what, 2 episodes or something?
Yeah, I think they set it up, and then like the actual arc was maybe like 2 episodes. So it's like I viewed it like 2.5 episodes.
Okay, yeah. So like I can see the reasoning why they did that, but yeah, it was a bit much. But then it also helped Shizuka as well to get over like the stuff she went through with her dad. So I do see the point of it. So it doesn't dock marks for me, but I love Akira as a main character, because like he's so goofy, but he has such a big heart, and he's no ego or anything. He's just trying to live life, and I do like that as the theme of the show, because he's like, life's short. Let's just put a list together and do like as many goofy things as we want to do. So. But yeah, I absolutely love Akira. I think he's one of my favorite main characters of the season.
Yeah, he was wonderful. I think you said it best. I think that this story was at its best when the core group is established and then they are running as like a team, which makes me think, when we get a season 2, if we get a season 2, how much more I'm going to enjoy the show, because I did enjoy it, but like it didn't grasp me the way I wanted it to, but it did at the end, if that makes sense. Like with them coming together and having their own different like quirks and sort of being like this fun found family team that they are together. That's what got me interested in Zom 100. That was the big thing. I was a big fan. I also want to say the OP, the second time they did the OP, was so good. The choreography with like the zombies, really, to me, it like elevates the show. When you set the tone for the show, you have a lot more fun. It reminds me of like other like really fun, happy, shiny days from Laid Back Camp. Really comes to my mind, where it's setting the tone for what I'm about to watch, where it's chaotic, it's colorful, it's a zombie show, and like that's what the OP to me like really like showed, and like it got me looking forward to what I was about to watch. It was a never skip OP. It was one of the best from the year, and I gotta give credit where credit's due. I know you said that your favorite character was Akira. I loved Beatrix. She was so fun, especially at the end, where she sets up this grand plan with the water wheel, and like it all comes together, and then she can't figure out how to get off of it. I'm like I love like this goofy character having this brilliant mastermind plan. She executes it. Once it's executed, okay, now how do I stop it? It was a scene where I'm like, oh, that's brilliant, but I also was laughing. And like those type of characters where I can do multiple things with really resonate with me. And I just thought she was a breath of fresh air and so fun. But that's not to say the entire cast itself was really good, really well done. Do you have any
Yeah.
final thoughts before we jump into our rating?
I am sad that Beatrix was introduced pretty later on.
Yeah.
Because I think we're waiting for her. We're like, okay, is she coming in? Is she coming in? So, like you said, I do hope there is a second season. I do hope that Bug Films get some help, because I think they did need help. And I'm really glad they were able to like execute it all. And
Yes.
like, sure, a delay, but I think they didn't skip any corners. And I think they did an excellent job. I never read the manga myself, but I think that it was awesome for a zombie show. And I look forward to another season if we get one.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Yes, there was a delay. However, what we actually saw, I thought was produced very well. For me, big fan, way bigger fan of the show towards the second half than compared to the first half. It was a great ride. It was really fun. I know a lot of people watch this. I know some of my friends who don't watch anime watch this. I think being it on Hulu and Netflix actually really helps casual watchers. So I thought that was like really good. Cast was great. Music was fun. Some story issues that I had problems with, but not like too bad. I'm gonna give this an 8. I had a really good time watching this.
I'm generous again, but not a 10. I'm giving it a 9.
Okay.
Just a 9. Yeah, it's a 9 for me, but I really enjoyed it for someone that doesn't really like zombies. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So an 8 from me, 9 from Cozette. Moving on to our next show. Oh my God, I can't wait to rant about this. Our Dating Story, a show that I was singing its high praises in the beginning of the season. I love this idea of a character who is experienced in high school, because that's common, but people are, I don't know, living under rocks, I guess, and having the storyline with a character who is experienced in like sex, essentially, and a character who has no experience, and sort of trying, like there's politics involved, where I mentioned it before, because the fact that she had sex, people were labeling her as like a whore and all this stuff. And I thought, I was like, people are so dumb. Like, this is insane that people would do this. But like, if he had a bunch of sex, he'd be labeled as a player and he'd be such a cool MC. I'm like, no. That's not how this works. Like oh my God. I have so many things running through my head that I just want to like scream out at people sometimes. But I thought this dynamic with these two characters trying to understand each other, like what having sex means to like them, is a very interesting take on romance anime, because I think a lot of times we don't get to this point. A lot of times it's 12 episodes and maybe at the end they kiss or something like that. This was like from the get-go, like episode 1 or maybe 2, like I think Runa attempts to try to have sex with Ryuto. I'm like, oh, this is like, I didn't really see this coming. Like, I didn't really like, how are they going to go forward with this? And that's what I was falling in love with this show. And you know what they did? They threw it out the window. Then they turned the second half into just generic bullshit that made no sense. It went away from everything that the story was trying to present and really grinded my gears. Oh my God. It was, it's a lot. Okay. Because you say your piece before I just go on like a 30-minute rant.
Well, I'm going to blame you, because
Okay.
I started because of you.
I thought I was onto something and I was wrong. I can't. Hey, even Steph Curry misses a 3 every now and then.
No, I get it. Honestly, I liked the first few episodes as well. I think it was really nice to like have a different type of dynamic, to have someone experienced, and I really liked their different personalities, and like they both have different interests. I thought their dates were so cute, and like he was rambling about stuff and she was like beady-eyed, and then she was rambling about stuff. Like that was so cute, and their dates were so wholesome. And then they threw this drama with her twin, which was okay. I guess you need some drama, but then they just kept throwing the drama. And all I wanted was cute dates, and even like their paintball thing that was so much fun with like her friends and his friends. So I think there was just a lot of unnecessary drama that I was like, why? Why?
There was a ton. One that really stuck out to me was her friend Akari, where they sort of set up this group dynamic where you said they go and play paintball. One of Ryuto's friends is crushing on her, and so he confesses, and she just like snaps at him. And I thought that was like so forced, where it's like, you do have a rapport with each other. Like, you've gone and hung out. This isn't just some like, I like you because you look hot type of thing. It's like they've done stuff. And she's just like, what do you like about me? I can't believe you did this. You don't even know who I am. And he's like, I kind of do, but like I kind of want to get to know you a little bit more. You could just say like no, and I think it would have been like, I don't know. It felt like so over the top, especially who her character was. To me, she seemed more like the calm, cool collective. And I get like, you know, if you're a really hot girl and you get asked out a lot, sure, that can be really annoying. But like, I felt like to me, like he had like good intentions. Yeah, he's like an otaku nerdy dude, but like if you really consider him your friend, like would you say that to your friend? I just thought that was like so forced down my throat to cause drama. And then later on, he loses weight and she thinks he's like the hottest piece of meat ever because he looks like a K-pop stan or a K-pop guy. I'm just like, wait, so now that he's hot, it's fine? Like, it just seems so odd that she did that and then like completely turned the table once he got hot. I really didn't like that dynamic, which sucks because I thought she was such a cool character up until that point. Is there any other like I know because I want to rant about this. Was there anything else that you want to say before I just dig into it?
Well, in terms of favorite couple, it's not. It was actually Nicole and Sakea.
Oh, okay. I got words, so you speak first.
So my heart fluttered for like half an episode. I really liked them, and then he fucked it up.
Yes,
because of school, because he has to study. Like, come on.
I hated it.
Everyone has to study, but I do like them as a couple. I was very disappointed. And sure, like she did the most romantic thing in the entire series.
Yes,
was to look into every classroom and find him and say, "I'll be waiting for you." Like that was the most romantic thing in this series for me. So, but yeah, I was pissed off. I was so pissed off.
I was also pissed off. He went through this, was like, okay, like, yeah, I like her, but you know, I have other obligations, so I'm not going to do anything with her, blah, blah, blah. And then he like meets up with her and like saves her at the school festival. I'm going to put saves in quotation marks. And, you know, like they go on a date and they fall in love with each other again. And he's like, I got to focus on my studies, so bye. It's like, you knew this the whole time and you couldn't communicate this to her. That's what drove me crazy, that you know, he's set up as a character who's logical and thinking about the future and all this stuff. And it's like, communicate that to Nicole and then you won't have misunderstandings. Because being in a relationship is a time commitment. If you don't have that time commitment, just communicate that to her. Don't ghost her. Don't just dump her out of the blue. Oh my God, it drove me crazy. It's just like, oh, just say it. Just say your words. Use your words, people. I can't stress this enough. If you just use your words, it's so much easier. You also mentioned it before, Runa's sister, that drama, not, it's just like, of course, the one girl Ryuto has ever confessed his love to is Runa's sister, even though she looks nothing like Runa. They have the same biological parents. They have no similarities. Outside they wear matching earrings or something along those lines. I thought towards the end it was fine because I actually liked Maria as a character a little bit towards the end, but like, you know, Maria dressing up as Runa, pretending to be Runa. I think what this anime really needs to say is just use your words, and it can go a lot further than trying to, you know, pretend you're somebody you're not. And that's what drove me crazy, because I think that this anime could have sent a really fun and interesting message and explore different themes that we don't see in romance anime, and really dive into that and be something that, I'm not going to say it's a staple, but I think that this could have been a show that people talk about when you're looking for like romance recommendation along those lines. And it just threw it all out the window. Do you have anything else you want to say before we get to like our final ratings?
I did feel bad for his friend that was following Nicole, because I think he wanted to talk to her, and I was like, oh, like if there was a second season, like maybe he would try. I don't know, but I just felt so bad for him because I think he wanted to confess to her or something.
Also, I just want to say shout out that like sometimes in relationships you just lose, and I think it was great that like he saw it, like he realized that he stood no chance. He's like, you know what? I lost, and then he just moved on. I think that it was really minor, but I did really enjoy that they added that aspect to it, where it's just like, I'm gonna fight for my love or blah blah blah. It's just like you're in high school. You know what? One thing I do wish that they explored more in anime is like breakups and stuff like that. But it's like sometimes the girl you like, she doesn't like you, and it's just like move on. And though it was like a brief 15-second whatever, I did enjoy that. So props to that. Diving into our final ratings, this show I think started off fantastic. I loved it. I love the themes that it was trying to send. I love the message it was trying to send and the character dynamics between the two main couples. However, I do feel like with the forced drama, they threw most of that out the window. I didn't think it was as explored as much. And I think they could have done more at the end where they are a more established couple. And then like at the last episode, Runa gets mad that Ryuto doesn't like try to have sex with her, even though she's like sick and passed out. I'm like, he's a really good boyfriend by not taking advantage of you. Like I get that when you're in a relationship, you know, you have to like, sometimes you push boundaries to see like what is acceptable, what's comfortable in each other's levels. When Runa is essentially unconscious, that's a really good time to not do anything to your girlfriend. And she got mad for that. And I'm like, why? I'm like, that's so weird. Ryuto is such a good guy. But outside of that, I think it just fell into generic romance stuff towards the end where the drama really killed the show, where you could have real drama. Have you seen Say I Love You?
No.
Okay. Say I Love You kind of has this dynamic where it's like a little bit of like unrequited love, but like also dealing with like sexual relationships. And I think how they handle like that drama is done way better than how this show does it. So if you've seen Say I Love You, maybe you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, it's going over your head. I thought the show, it ended up being middle of the pack. I'm giving it a 6 just because I thought the beginning was so good, but the ending really killed it. If it got a second season, even though there's like a 1% chance of happening, I would probably watch it, but I feel like it's going to be leaning into more of that generic romance stuff. If somebody has read it, let me know. You can like DM me or something. I would love to see how like this story continued. But yeah, it really did fall off for me.
For me, I agree. I think the first half was so great. I love Runa as a character, and I think it really touched on the pressures that females go through in high school. Because like we just feel like in order to get love from men is to give it up. And so she thought, and like that's a very realistic thing that a lot of us females go through. So that's why like I was so like I loved the beginning of the anime. So I was like, oh, this is great. This is really touching on some realistic themes that us women go through. And then went down the crack. Went down the crack. So yeah, it's a 6 for me. I think the first half was great. I think if anyone likes drama and just chaos, sure, you'll love it. But I just wanted hand holding and happiness.
Yeah.
So it's a 6.
For sure. And you mentioned a good point. I'm 100% stealing this from Miles, so I'm gonna give Miles all the credit. Exploring just like sexuality and like being okay with it. Sex is different for every person. For instance, if Runa was just like sexually active and like that's something that she just like enjoyed, I think that would have been also a really interesting route to go through. But I think instead that they didn't, with what they were setting up for, they didn't touch on any of it. And that's like my biggest issue, where you could have gone, I think, a couple different ways with Runa and Ryuto's characters and as a couple, and they just explored none of it, especially in high school when you are, especially if this is like your first serious girlfriend. There are so many things running through your mind compared to like if you had like your third girlfriend in high school or something along those lines. I feel like you could have touched on those themes and it just was never explored. And it sucks when a show has potential and it just misses the mark. And this is one that's going to be living rent free in my head. If you can't tell, I'm still like, I could probably talk about this as much as JJK, where it's going to live rent free in my head because I love romance stories. I love like drama involved with being in like a romantic relationship. And just missing the mark so hard on it. Ugh. Enough about that. Let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about something nice and really fun. And that is the Yuzuki family's 4 Sons, which ended up being a show. It was always on my radar. We do see it a lot in anime where the parents are dead and, you know, like the characters kind of like have to move forward without it. But this was a refreshing take on like the family coming together as like a newish. It's hard to describe. So the dynamic of like the older brother stepping up and really taking on the role as guardian. He even wears a apron that says mama on it, which I thought was super funny. And just like the dynamic as somebody who has two brothers, the dynamic between the brothers, especially like how the older brother, because I'm the middle child, so I got like the idea of like looking at your younger brother a different way compared to your older brother. And I thought that dynamic was done really well. There's a lot to say about this. I want to get your thoughts though, because I know you love the show just as much as I did.
Anyone follows me on Twitter, you know how much I love the show. It was such a nice surprise. And I know that there was the translation issue that happened in the first episode. And lucky for me, I was in Japan then, so I didn't even watch the first episode when it came out. So I watched the show once all the translation stuff was fixed, and I fell in love with it right off the bat. I was like, this is slice of life. This is my jam. These kids are absolutely adorable. I think it's an amazing family slice of life about growth. And the thing is that like, it felt a lot of the conversations and themes, like the storyline was very simple. Like it was like going to school, Parents' Day, whatever. But all the conversations were just so profound and deep. Like just talking like Minato trying to determine his like feelings for Uta and like, does he have any like romantic feelings for her? And then they talked about like how relationship works as like, they're just like what, middle school? And I was like, I've never seen this in a normal rom-com, like our dating story. Yeah. So
I'm triggered again. But
it was such an amazing slice of life. And I love the different perspectives of like the different sons. And yes, there's a bigger age gap between the older son and the rest of them, but I related most to the older sibling because my sister and I are like 5 years apart, so I'm a lot older than her, and I was always the one taking care of her growing up. So I just related to that so much. But I absolutely loved the show, and it had one of the best fights of the season.
Yes, it did.
It was so good.
It encapsulates like adolescence so well with, you know, a lot of times when you see adolescence in these type of shows, it's I feel like it's like the silliness, and sometimes it's like the dialogue. Sometimes they use like silly words and stuff like that. They can't express it, but like they express this adolescence through a fight, and it's not like squaring up. It's just like throwing your fist like this. I don't know if anyone's ever seen The Simpsons where Lisa and Bart are fighting, and Bart is doing this windmill move, and then Lisa is doing like a Rockefeller kick move, and those are the only moves that they know how to do because they're like 9. And like that makes perfect sense. So it's like they're just frustrated, you know, like 6th graders, and they don't know how to express themselves, but they can through like fights, because when you're kids, you fight about the dumbest shit all the time. And like it honestly, because of like what it was showing and what it meant to the story, it is one of my favorite fights from this year. Like not everything needs to be explosions and fireworks when it comes to a fight. Like sometimes the meaning of the fight is so much more impactful than like what we see on screen with Goku versus Vegeta or something along those lines. Yeah. You made a good point. Like you said, you and your sister are 5 years apart. Me and my younger brother we're essentially Irish twins. So we're 13 months apart. So like with Mikoto and Minato, they're very, very similar to like me and my younger brother. So I really resonated with those two because like as like the older brother, like I see some of the things that he sees. But one thing that really stood out to me was Hayato and him sort of coming to the realization of who he needs to be as a person. So he can, I think people get this crossroads where he can choose. He can be like a single bachelor. I think he's like 20, like early 20s in the show. He graduated college. He's a teacher. He can choose, like, do I want to be the caretaker for my brothers, or do I want to experience like being a single bachelor in my 20s, and him having to make that sacrifice and choosing his brothers over, I think, like the independence that a lot of people crave and want, was really nice to see. It did hit me a little bit because as somebody who had to do something. I'm not gonna go deep into it, but like I get Hayato having to choose family over maybe something that he wants to do more than family. And I was like, how that was presented really hit me. And it's really honestly one of the reasons why this is one of my not only favorite slice of lives of the year, but of all time. Just the relationships that they do in settings where it's not necessarily serious. A lot of the times it's silly, fun stuff that has a deeper meaning. And if you want to look into that more, you can. And I did. And it's one reason why this show to me was just so special and so fun and such a great message it was trying to send. Do you have any final thoughts before we get into our rating of the Yuzuki family?
I think the one thing that surprised, because like it was already perfect. Like I knew I was gonna love this right off the bat, but the thing that surprised me was the animation direction and the art direction, because
Yes.
there's a lot of smart and fun animation choices in the series that I did not expect. It reminded me of how Bochi was animated
Yep.
a bit, but the scene of like Minato, I think it's Minato and Uta running down the street, but then the street is like a real life street. And then like the final episode with Gakuto on the bus.
So
and then you
that's
see, like,
the one that stuck out to me.
that was perfect. Like I need to look up who was the director for this, but it was a nice surprise, the direction of the show, because I thought it was so fun. And it, like I even without that, I would have given it a 10 anyway. So I just really loved it. It was really different for a shoujo too. So
Yep.
yeah.
So the director's name is Mitsuru Hongu. He did Adolescence of a Bookworm. What else did he do? He did some Monster Hunter stuff. He did World Trigger the first season. So he's done some shows. I did really enjoy Adolescence of a Bookworm. So yeah, really nice directorial choice. The Gakuto on the bus one really stuck out to me. That one was so emotional and just beautiful, with like the contrast between the 2D and 3D, but then like the rain and like the cloudy and gray scenes mixed with how Gakuko was feeling at that time really stood out to me. I would say this is near a 10 for me. I bet if I rewatched it and thought about it more, I think it has a potential to be a 10. For me, I'm gonna give this like a really strong 9. Like it was absolutely wonderful.
For me, I cried a few times, and it had the best boy Gakuto of the season, so I gave it a 10 because I'm a big slice of life girl, and this was like one of the best of the year, like you said. So yeah, it's a big old 10 for me, and like my fingers are crossed that the manga gets licensed for English, because I want to read it. I want to read it so badly, and it's not available anywhere. So fingers crossed.
Viz Media, you heard the people. Give us what we want. Okay, 10 from Cozette. I gave it a very, very strong 9. One of the strongest 9s of the year. Moving on to another fun slice of life that we absolutely fell in love with this. My New Boss is Goofy. A show where I didn't really I expected some silliness from it, but I didn't expect how much silliness we got from it. There were some that I really enjoyed. There were some that really put me off. So to start, I thought the introduction to the manager, Yusui, was great, where the main character, Momose, was having like a stomach ache. And because his girlfriend used to have stomach ache, he went and bought like period cramp medicine, thinking like that would help him. Like things like that, that's silly fun. And I thought that's how it started off. Like it set the tone for like how silly this show was going to be. So huge props to setting the tone immediately. Their whole relationship, people say it's not a yaoi. This show is 100% a yaoi. It's 100% a BL. You're lying to yourself if you don't think it is. Love their relationship. The introduction to Hakuto and to their family, having a tsundere cat, is next level character design and just group dynamics. I loved Hakuto. He was so adorable and so fun. The one character, though, I got to rant for just a smidge. The one character that I did not like at all was the director, Mitsuo. Did not like him at all. His like fascination with essentially, I'm just gonna say Mickey Mouse for the people who, because I forgot like the character's name or whatever. But his like infatuation with everything needing to be this character, I thought got really stale. I think the characters even made a joke about it when they were doing the Christmas exchange, where it's like, oh wow, you didn't get me like a Mickey Mouse thing. That's actually kind of surprising from you, because it's like everybody like knew what to expect from his character, and he was like the one downside to this show. Outside of that, the entire cast was super fun, and I loved it. What were some of your thoughts about my new boss's Goofy?
Well, it reminded me a lot of Play It Cool Guys, which I think was last year or something like that. But it had that kind of goofiness, which I think Play It Cool Guys also isn't a BL, but people consider it as a BL as well. I was a little worried about the concept because I think like once there's a shtick about someone being goofy, I'm like, can this last 12 episodes? Am I gonna get bored of it? Because that came into my head. But I realized that like it became less about the goofiness and more about their relationship. So like that's the heart of the show for me. I don't condone workplace relationships, but I'll condone it for this show.
Yes, it's a very, very good message to send. Unless you think that person is your soulmate, I also discourage workplace relationships.
Whatako is also an exception, but I think the show is so enjoyable, and it's funny because I also work in advertising, so I do see the relatability in it. I do say advertising is not like that, so it was a bit of a romanticized way of working in an agency, but I do really loved it. And the director, like, he was the thing that I did not like in the show either. He was a bit of they call it a pick-me girl, where he was just like, woe is me, no one wants to go to dinner with me. Oh, my wife, I know why your wife divorced you. Yeah. It's pretty obvious.
I'm surprised she married you in the first place.
I know, right? But yeah, so he was a bit of a downer, but the rest of it was so sweet. And I do love the introduction of a bisexual character. I think that was like one of the fun things of the show. But overall, I think it was a really fun adult slice of life in The Office. But yeah.
Okay. For my final thoughts, very fun, very silly show. This was such a treat to watch. Going into it, I knew that I was going to laugh at least a few times this episode, and that's what I was looking for. The relationship between the two with Momose and the manager, that was like my focal point. So when those two were the focal points, it definitely was like the highlight. The director, I didn't like. The Kinjo, the fourth member of their group, I thought he was like fine. He kind of got introduced kind of like Beatrice and Zom. I think he got introduced a little late where I couldn't connect with him as much as the other characters, but I didn't think he was like bad at all. I wanted to know a little bit more with him and I could connect with him a little bit more. But the show was hilarious. It was so much fun. I'm gonna give this an 8.
Same here. We're just like the same all the ratings. It's an 8 for me too.
It's like we finished each other's
sentences.
Oh, sandwiches. Damn it. Okay. We're almost there. So yeah, so 2-8 for my new boss's Goofy. We're entered this little phase now of shows that like Cozette saw that I didn't, and then vice versa. So I'm gonna pass it over to you if you want to talk about Migi and Dali.
Sure. So Migi and Dali was like the dark horse of the season for me, because like I didn't think I was gonna continue watching it because I heard how silly it was. So I decided to check it out. And there was like 3 episodes available. So I checked it out, and yes, it is very weird, but I love a murder mystery. That's like one of my favorite kind of shows. So that's what Migi and Dali is about. And even though it was very weird and a lot of the plot lines that happened were weird, it just made sense for the aura of the show, I guess. So I really loved it. It was very camp, very flamboyant. I thought it was so much fun. And the ending was absolutely perfect. So I do recommend it for anyone that loves a murder mystery. I think it was so much fun, and I love their dynamic. There are a lot of weird parts. So if you can get over that, you'll really love the show. I originally thought it was going to be a 6, but I bumped it to an 8.
Nice.
I really liked it. And that was like the biggest surprise for me this season, because I thought I was going to drop it. So yeah, I really loved Migi and Dali. The other one was Saint's Magic is Omnipotent. It was a bit of a slow burn of the season. I loved the first season. I thought it was absolutely adorable, and I thought there was going to be a bit more movement with Say and Hawk. I don't think you watched it. You finished it, right? So I
haven't finished it, so I'm 4 episodes in, and that's kind of my feeling. So there were shows that I dropped that I couldn't like get into. Saint's Magic is something that I will continue watching, but I feel like it is dragging a little bit.
Yeah, so I won't say too much, but I'll say that it did drag, but I would say the finale was like, it was worth it. Okay. It was worth it. The finale was worth it. Just go through the mundane of the rest episodes and then watch the finale. I thought it was very worth it. But because of the slow burn of the season, I did give it a 7.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other one I watched was Ancient Magus Bride Season 2, Part 2. It was just a continuation from the first quarter in spring where she's in the academy. So I thought that was really great. It was a murder mystery this time around. There was more action this season. So I really liked it. It's fine for me. It's not like my love. So I gave it an 8 as well. And then I guess the last one would be Shy. So Shy was okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Stoney.
Yeah, sorry, Stoney. I love you. I think Shy was fine. A lot of people said Shy was going to be like My Hero Academia, but I felt it was more like Sailor Moon because she's shy, goofy, and she's like, there's a lot of heart in the show, and I think anyone that loves Sailor Moon will probably like Shy. I did find myself a little bored for most of the season, but I can see other people liking it. I just really got bored of it. So I did give it a 7. In terms of, because they did announce there is a season 2. I might check it out still because I think there could be some potential. So, yeah, and that's it. I think everything else I dropped. So,
any shows you want to call out that you dropped for any specific reason? You don't have to.
I mean, the reason why I dropped some things is because I just wasn't feeling it. So, like Shangri-La Frontier, I thought I was going to enjoy because I have enjoyed MMO full dive shows before, but for some reason I wasn't feeling it. But I think there is an opportunity for me to revisit it one day. And then I did drop I'm in Love with the Villainess. And it's honestly, I love the fact that there's representation of like girl love in this season. It's real girl love, but I just can't stand obsessive characters.
Sure.
I can't stand it in a romance. I don't like obsessive characters like that, especially when it's one-sided. So I did drop it as well. So sorry, Miles. I think Miles recommended this one. So
they also added an incest plot to it where I'm at the point.
Shit.
I'm at the point where I haven't finished it, but like I have like 3 episodes to go and I kind of want to drop it.
I didn't know there was incest. So
it comes out of nowhere and it makes no sense. Why they did it is so dumb.
Oh my God.
They had to do the anime thing.
And the other show, I didn't really drop it. I just didn't continue. Was Overtake. But then I heard that a lot of people liked it.
Same.
So I'm like, I think I need to maybe fit it in before winter starts. So yeah.
Episode 1 was just like a huge exposition dump. I'm like, this is so boring. And I heard it gets great, but I'm like, that first episode was terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I will die on that hill. I get expo dumping, but that was like 15 minutes of expo dumping of what F4 racing is. I'm like, we know what cars are. It's fine. You don't have to explain the difference between F1 and F4. Like, it's fine. It's not going to matter. I guarantee it. Okay. Anything else before I jump into my side?
No, that's it.
Cool. Okay, so I finished The 100 Girlfriends Who Really Like You. I think there's a lot of problems with this show. While it was trying to satire and parody a lot of these harem shows, it also did the exact same thing that those harem and satire shows do. So it's like, it's at the point where like, is this satire, is this parody when you are doing the same thing? But I will say the comedy bits that they set up in this show are, some of them were like fantastically well done. The episode where he's like essentially playing Pokemon and is like running around the school like he would in like the starter zone of like Pokemon Red was like super fun. The zombie episode was a little extra. The kissing zombie episode was really extra, but I think that's what the show is trying to do. I just don't think like I'm the target market for it. Like, it wants to be over the top extra on a lot of these different like parody style harem stuff, and that's fine. Like, I get that's what it's going for. It just, to me, it missed the mark a few times, but for the most part I enjoyed it. I thought the cast was really fun. Shizuka, the girl who uses the phone to talk, I thought was absolutely adorable. The fact that she refers to Rentaru as like boss man, he's like on a key. I thought that was just like super fun and silly. Like, that stuff is really fun. Nano was like really a great addition to the cast as well. Karane was fine. Hikari was fine. Kuzuri, the scientist girl, was also a little extra, but I think that's what it was going for. Yeah, the first part was fun. I'm gonna give it an 8 just because I did laugh a lot. I didn't have a lot of problems, but I do think the comedy sort of outweighed a little bit of my issues with it. I'm looking forward to watching season 2 or part 2 or whatever they're labeling it as, and it was a fun comedy. I also want to give a shout out to a show called I'm Giving Up on the Disgraced Noble Lady I Rescued in a Crash Course of Naughtiness. That's a long ass title. The premise essentially is, I think Cinderella runs away from her abusive family. She winds up meeting like the Demon Lord, but the Demon Lord's like a cool dude. And so he kind of like hires her as like a maid / whatever, housekeeper. But he also wants to like have fun with her. So he teaches her naughty things. But, like the naughty things are like staying up late and playing video games and eating junk food. It's like fun stuff like that, where I thought that was like a hilarious take on like how the title of the show is essentially set up. Towards the end though, it got kind of like our dating story, got super generic fantasy shit where I'm just like, this is no longer fun. Like they went away from the naughtiness stuff and went into like a typical fantasy thing at the end of the whatever. However, them as a duo was really fun. I'm gonna give this show like a 7. I think it could have legit been a 9 if they kept with what they were trying to do in the beginning and didn't go away from what they did at the end. But it was still a really fun show. Another show that I watch, this is only 2 seconds. My Daughter Left the Nest and Returned as an S-rank adventure. Thought it could be really fun. It ended up being pretty boring. I'm gonna give it a 5. It was there. The father-daughter dynamic thing could have been really fun, and it just wasn't. It was not at all. So it lost me. It's a 5. Shows that I dropped. The Faraway Paladin season 2, I thought it dragged. I thought season 1 was like average, so I didn't really have like high expectations, and it just dragged. I'm like, all right, that's enough. Drop that. I dropped MF Ghost. I don't think it. So there's a few shows where I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's just This is a really busy time of the year for me, and if it doesn't hook me, it's just not making the cut. I don't think MF Ghost is bad. I just ran out of time, so I dropped it. Overtake, the first episode was terrible. I'm sorry. I'm not going to see if it gets better when I'm watching 25, 30 shows in a season. The first episode is so important, and it just lost me. Shy's another show where I didn't think it was bad. I just thought it was fine, middle of the road, and it didn't last. 16-bit Sensation. The show made no fucking sense. Like, I get that it's fun about like Bishoujo visual novels. It made no sense. The time travel stuff made no sense. There's a character in the show who refuses to update his computer, and so he becomes a NEET, essentially. I'm like, that is the dumbest reason to be a hermit, essentially. I didn't like, the drama was really odd. But save the worst for last. Berterbera, whatever it is, the story of a man who turned into a pig. This show was absolute ass. It was so bad. I thought this would be a funny isekai where a dude got turned into a pig and it'd be like some comedy thing. No, it's some greasy ass otaku who got turned into a pig who refers to women as young maidens and says it 8 times an episode. And I'm like, this is so cringe. This is like an otaku's wet fantasy, maybe, but like it was awful. It was one of the worst shows I saw all year. I did like a top 10 list of like my least favorite shows of the year. It was number 2. It was trash. If you're wondering what number 1 was, it was In Another World with My Smartphone season 2. Don't have 4 wives if you're afraid to hold their hand. So yeah, I think that's my. I missed one. It was Stardust Telepath, a cute girls doing bottle rockets. It was, if you like cute girls, if you like bottle rockets, you should check out Stardust Telepath. It was fine. I have 1 episode to go. I have an idea of what it's going to end like. It's like a 6. It's fine. It's whatever. But if I know people out there like cute girls doing cute things show, this was fine. It was fine. Yeah. So let's finish out this season's review with a show that I finished 2 hours ago, and I started a few days ago, and it blew my mind with how good this show was. We're going to be talking about Pluto. Now, I want you to start because I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes.
Sure. I loved it. I watched it twice. I'm insane. I don't know how I watched it. I watched it in sub first, and then I wanted to understand it a bit better because I actually rated it a bit lower. And then my second watch, I watched it in dub, and I rated it a lot higher. Mm-hmm. But I love a murder mystery, and that's pretty much how it started it off as. So I absolutely loved it. I totally thought Adam was the main character when I jumped. Like, I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't read the plot. Like, I went in totally blind. So I thought Adam was the main character, kind of like going Hunter x Hunter.
Same.
But I really liked Cozette. I think he was such a cool character. But I really loved the story building, the world building about sentient robots living in humanity, and then just like how their different AIs are like different from each other and how they have different personalities. The first episode blew me out of the water.
That's
like,
so good.
Like North number 2, like that was perfect. I actually watched that episode more than once, more than twice actually. So I love that. Like I would have watched it on its own because I just love it so much. Out of all the robots, I think I connected with Epsilon the most. Not because Miyano Mamoru was the VA.
That helps.
Which made it too. It helps. He was perfect. But I loved Epsilon. I really liked his ethics, and he was such a charming character. And I did cry when he died. But I also think I cried mostly because he was on the show probably the longest next to Cozette. So I think Cozette's death and Epsilon's deaths were the ones that like really hit me. Adam's was just like a shock. Like I was like, I don't believe this because Adam is Adam. Like he's so cute. But I absolutely love the show. The one thing I do wish, and it's not needed, it's a nice to have. I wish we actually got to meet Mont Blanc.
Yes.
First.
Oh my god, I loved his design.
Yeah, and like I it's probably because of the source material, but I would have loved to meet him, and just maybe his death would have been a bit more impact at the beginning. But you still feel the impact at the beginning of the show. So, but I just would have loved to meet him. I love Brando's story as well. Overall, I think the show is absolutely incredible, and like I wasn't sure if I was going to like it too. So, but yeah. What did you think about it? You have a fresh mind, so I want to know what you
So the fact that this was written in like 2000, the early 2000s, I think it took like 6 years to write. And dealing with a lot of the things that are happening in the real world is what kind of really gravitated towards me. You know, like this Persian war that happened in the story, I mean, it was giving me a lot of like Israel-Palestine vibes where I was like, Jesus, like this is hitting every mark for like what's happening now. AI is a huge topic of discussion with how it's used, what it's used for, and how the show sort of presented AI to me was we have characters like Mont Blanc, whose design is to protect the forest and protect nature. I'm like, you know, that's a really good use case for AI. You have someone like Brando, who you see him adopting children, and it's like, you know, we have like a terrible foster care system. Would it be better? It raises this question. What would be better? You have kids living in like foster care, foster homes with like 10, 20, 30 children in one home, or having like programmed parents to give them a better living situation. Like, I think that's like a really interesting, whether I agree with it or not, I think like the topic of debate of how these AI use cases are used are so topical, and it's like that is a need that AI can address. I'm like, damn, okay. Like, and then you see someone like Epsilon, who these 7 core robots all fought in the. Did Adam fight in the war?
Yeah.
I don't remember if Adam fought in the war, but like, you know, North number 2 fought in the war, Cozette fought in the war, Epsilon or Mont Blanc fought in the war, Brando fought in the war. Epsilon's the one where he didn't. He's the one guy that didn't fight in the war, and he's sort of seen as like an outcast in some aspects, where him choosing not to do this excluded him, even though it was by far the correct thing to do. And so like that brought up another conversation, like, you know, doing the right thing is having all these complications for you. And I was just like, Epsilon is such a great character. He's using his, I'm not gonna say power, but like he's like a core 7 robot for good, for protecting children. And I'm like, that is such a great use case for whatever AI or just like his character in general. And I just fell in love with these characters and like what they were representing and the message that they were trying to send in Pluto, where now we have society rising up against robots, or at least it does seem like it's a little radical where it's more of the minority, but they have such an influence that it's causing this catastrophic event or possible catastrophic event. And I think that's also another thing that we see in real life, especially with somebody who lives in the US, with something like the January 6th riots, where it's like this minority radical group is trying to uprise the government, but and you know, they could be there's like behind the scenes puppeteering, which is we also see towards the end is also a thing. And just like so many things in the show is just so relatable, or a topic for discussion, or a message it's trying to send, whether you agree with it or not. It's like it's presented in a way that is just incredible. And that's what I love about this style of storytelling. And man, it was an incredible experience. There's like one of the last things Pluto says was like, you're filled with rage. Rage only leads to more rage. You shouldn't be upset. Something along like those lines, where it's like, this will only continue, or this will continue as long as we are filled with rage. We are never going to get anywhere if we are filled with rage. And you see sort of Pluto sacrifice himself to end this current cycle. And I just thought like how Pluto was a character as like this murder robot, and then by the end being sentient and making his own decisions was really well done. And we also saw that with Brow 1589 at the end. He gets to choose. He chooses whether he wants to essentially lead the robot uprising, or I guess through his conversations with people while he was stuck in the wall, choosing his own path. And he chooses to let the humans survive and not have the robots overrun it. Because I think he's like, you know, they're warm and fragile, but the one thing that they have that we don't is heart. And it's like, you know, that's a topic for discussion again with robots and AI. I'm like, this is so well done. I'm not the biggest sci-fi guy. Like, I don't like Star Wars. I don't like Star Trek. I loved Pluto. I loved everything about Pluto. Gachette is one of my favorite characters, period, from this year. Yeah. I just thought how he was shown in a light with so many different elements, whether it was family or like his job. You know, we see this in the story where Gachette and his wife have lost 2 years of their memory. And robots are not allowed to kill other robots. There's only one robot in the existence of the world that has done that, and that's Brow 1589. He's the only robot that has ever killed a human. And that's essentially what started the Persian, or one of the reasons, not the only reason why the Persian War happened. Gachette killed another human, and that's why he lost 2 years of his memories. And we see this with AI, even though you establish the rules that they are not allowed to kill, as they get more advanced, those rules don't necessarily apply. And I think that's like the same thing with humans. You know, like, I think there's like a moral rule with humans where like, we probably shouldn't kill each other. That's a bad idea, but people still do it. And then seeing Gachette having his son essentially kidnapped and then murdered causes him to lose it and kill another human. I'm just like, this is incredible. Like, this is like what, it's just so good. I just loved everything about Pluto. I could probably rant for another like 20 minutes. The thing with Tenma and why he created Adam was so heartbreaking, where he took, I think they said like 9.9 billion different personalities in the world, and he uploaded them all into one robot to try to recreate his dead son who died in a car accident. And it just doesn't exist. You know why? Because we're all unique and we're all individuals, and a computer program isn't going to make Adam come back. And it's like, it's genius. It's just like, it's just so good. And like what they were trying to do, the messages that they were trying to send. I know you mentioned before, North number 2, you know, they don't say how many people he killed, but it's like the idea that he was this absolute killing machine, that he killed so many people in the war that it's like, you know, it's ridiculous, like how many people he killed. But he never wanted to do it. He fell in love with music. He wanted Paul Duncan showed him what like his purpose was. And it's like, that's like, it's just such a good message with like each individual like core 7 robot. Mont Blanc with the environment, Epsilon with humanity and like raising our youth and like the next generation up, like his idea of what society could be. I even mentioned Uron, Adam's sister, like her ties to sadness and fear and like what her purpose was in the show was, well, yes, she was a supporting character, but I think she did so much impact to the main storyline where she just was an incredible supporting character. Man, I feel like this is a show I want to do for like Watch Club. I want to discuss this with like 6 people and get their thoughts, because as somebody who is not like sure on like, I'm not a tech guy. Like I don't know shit about AI. That I have questions, and there's some things that scare me because I've seen Terminator 2. This like is like, okay, what can we use AI for to be good for humanity? And like those questions, just I want to get that discussion. This show was amazing. Amazing. It's serious contender for like my top show of the year. I love these style of shows. It was everything I wanted. I rented for like 10 minutes. Do you have anything that you want to say that I thought you thought maybe my points were dumb or something?
Well, I agree with everything you said. I think there's just something so great about the show, and I honestly, like, I didn't think I was gonna like it. I do wish that we had an extra. I don't know if it's the source material, but I do wish it was a bit longer, just a little bit.
Yep,
just a little bit longer. Oh, the fun fact. So I looked up who the studio was. Studio M12, and I found out the founder of it was the founder of MAPPA.
Oh.
And co-founder of Madhouse. So yeah, that's why the animation, because I wanted to see who did it, because the animation was so insane. And then I saw the God, what his name was, but he's tied to MAPPA and Madhouse. So I was like, that's impressive. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Overall, I really love the show, and I think it'll be a good contender for Watch Club. So I would love to hear everybody's thoughts about it, because it's definitely one of those shows that it does need a deep dive review.
Yes. I'm really intrigued to see if people are doing like video essays on either the manga or the anime. I'm definitely going to dive into it, because this is just like the type of story that I fall in love with. I love the topics of discussion. One thing with me with anime is I love discussing it, whether it's the show itself or like the themes or messaging it's trying to send. And I think this did everything. Easy 10 for me. Like one of the easiest 10s all year. This is top 3 anime for me this year, I think. I gotta think about it, but right now it's top 3.
Wow. So I originally had it at an 8, and then second rewatch, once I've seen everything and let it absorb and watching it a second time, I bumped it all the way to a 10.
Let's go.
It was so good. Like the criticisms I had, when I rewatched it again, I was like, these criticisms don't matter. I love the show. So yeah, I gave it a 10. I was very generous this season.
Yes. So, I mean, I gave 3 10s. You gave 3 10s, I think, as well. Something like that.
I threw 10s.
It was a very, very good season, that to say. And it's going to make Anime of the Year that much harder, because I got a lot to think about. But that concludes our episode. If you have made it this far and you want to support us, the best way to do so is like, comment, subscribe, leave a review on whatever platform you are watching or listening to us on. What we're doing next week for Watch Club is Cautious Hero. Otherwise, we're going to start diving into Anime of the Year stuff. So the next non-Watch Club episode will be the Anime of the Year nominations. I'm intrigued for people to see what our 6 choices are for each like genre. Also, if you vote, I will be donating $1 to, I believe, the Carolina Traveling Manga Library. So we try to give back every year in some way for something anime related. Last year, it was a donation of a manga box set. You think it'd be easy to donate manga to a library, and it was harder than my actual job. So I'm just going to be donating to a cause. It's way easier. So yeah, look for that. But Cozette, thank you so much for joining me. Do you have any parting words for the people out there?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I love talking about seasonals, and if you find me on Twitter, we can chat about seasonals, or join the Discord, because I'm always hanging out on there. So join the Discord. I'm always talking about seasonals on there as well.
Sick plug. I'll leave links to that in the description below. But thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Bye bye.